All right, y'all. So now let's go from one gay icon to another. And let's talk about Adam Lambert. So, Madonna has her new album coming out the first week of January, the first week of July. And then the next week, which is smart on his part, Adam Lambert is releasing his new album called Adam. Now, it's funny enough, I didn't even know he was releasing music until I happened to be going Apple Music. And like on Apple Music, it gives you like new releases of like what's the new songs and stuff that's out. So I was happened to be just listening to music and it said Adam Lambert and it said Eat You Alive. I'm like, Adam Lambert got a new single? Let me hear this shit. And bitch, I gagged because it was giving sort of like that rock industrial vibe. And with Adam's powerhouse vocals, oh, he definitely was gonna eat. And I told you I ran into him at Fire Island. It was like 2 years ago, whatever the case was, when I went. So, and he looked good in person. I was like, okay, but he was with his man at the time. I don't know. I think he's single now. I'm gonna try to get up in them cheek. No, let me stop. I like Adam, but anyway. So, yeah, he's got new music coming out on his own label. Let me check to see what's the name of the label. It said More is More, distributed by The Orchard. So More is More is actually his label. Adam is independent. He's releasing music on his own label, which I think is smart. And I do feel like, based on what he was saying, I believe the album wouldn't they probably make him just do all kinds of other stuff if he didn't have ownership of doing what he wanted to do as an artist. And I've always felt that music wise, he should have always tried to marry the rock with electronic music. And it's funny how like now it seems like that's the direction a lot of music is going with the whole thing with Slater and all these other artists. It feels like they're all going in that direction, which is like that whole 90s vibe, but and 2000s vibe, but taking like rock and electronic and all these different things and marrying them together. But according to him, he said that from what I heard is they said that the album will reflect the music that made an impact on him in the 90s and the 2000s, such as Nine Inch Nails, Bjork, Prince, Muse, Goldfrapp, Daft Punk, George Michael, Massive Attack, and the Crystal Method, and just a few who inspired the sound. Funny enough, this sounds like something definitely in my wheelhouse because a lot of these artists he mentioned, I grew up on. When I told you, like, yeah, I was a huge Massive Attack fan because I told you I used to, growing up in the 90s, trip hop music, I was very much a UK music nerd. Like I was always listening to Bjork and Massive Attack and Tricky and Goldie and The Prodigy and what was it? Underworld. And a lot of those, I was a real big DJ head. So I was listening to a lot of raver DJs and things like that. Fatboy Slim and a lot of stuff. Fatboy Slim was more or less the main, like a mainstream big beat type of vibe. But that was like a lot of the music and stuff. And of course, Bjork. I told you, like, the first time I saw a Bjork music video, she sucked me in immediately. I think it was the Possibly Maybe video. And then I saw the All Is Full of Love video, the Chris Cunningham one, where she was a robot making out with herself. That shit changed my life. So, and ever since then, I went down to the Virgin Megastore and bought every damn Bjork album. I didn't care if I was going to go broke, but I bought every Bjork album up to that point, and even the singles, the maxi singles, some of them were imports, and the imports wasn't cheap back in the day, especially if you were shopping at the Virgin Megastore. So, and then Goldfrapp. So he did say with this album that it's going to have sort of more of that aggressive, industrial Nine Inch Nails type vibe, but then also the other side, which I'm like, damn, if I was recording the album, that's definitely the version I would go. I would do the aggressive stuff like the Nine Inch Nails, but also bringing that euphoric, vulnerable side, which would be the Goldfrapp and stuff like that. Because one of the things I love about Alison Goldfrapp's voice is the fact that she's very sensual and ethereal and very much just like come like take you in, very mother. Like she wears a caftan with the curly hair, and she likes the like it kind of gives that whole vibe where it just feels like you're swaying with the wind and the brush of the trees and the leaves and all the other stuff and the grass. Like it feels very much like that. So um now to get into the story, yeah, he said, well, yeah, we already know the song is rock with electronic production, which we've already I'm sure that y'all already heard that. And then he had I feel like once he started doing afters, because I've always kind of like when he did the rock and electronic marry stuff, like that whole marriage. But when he did afters was like, okay, you giving me my life with this. Because I always be wanting my gays who could sing. to like give me like those powerhouse dance tracks. And I like the fact that he was experimenting with his sound with the EP, even though I wanted to be a full-fledged album. But I know you got to do what you got to do at that time. And then he went and did Broadway with Cabaret and all that stuff. And you got to scrape up some coins in order to do the things that you want to do in regards to your music. And now I heard even better. Adam lives in New York now. So who knows? I might run into her again. So um he also talked about the shifting focus of the new material in a conversation with Variety, also landing on his recent theatrical experiences playing a leading cabaret on Broadway and Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl. That was with Cynthia Erivo, I believe, and discussing how a change in coast has altered his music framework. So they asked him, is Eat You Alive the first single because it's indicative of what you want people to expect from the whole Adam album, or is it more to do with just feeling like a great track? And he said there's definitely a few different facets of my musical identity on the album, but there's definitely also a strong thread of alternative rock leaning, heavy, very metallic sounding production. That was something that I really was excited to just have sort of discovered with my executive producer, Pete Nappy. And if you listen to his EP, I believe the very last song on the album, I think it's called Face, if I remember off the top of my head. He said that song was indicative of giving you a preview of where he was going to go, because that's why he tacked it on at the end. So that way, this was the direction that I was going to go into with the upcoming new era. Because I believe that song was supposed to be on his Velvet record, which I didn't particularly care for. Because it was like he was kind of going to this whole 70s prog rock type sound. And so, I mean, I didn't particularly care for that record. I listened to it once. I was like, nah, it's not for me. But he said that was a kind of direct, but it didn't fit on that, so he put it on this album. It's funny how you have demos that just be sitting around for a long time. It's like, you know what, let's go back and revisit it and rework some things and call it a day. So, and he talks about how "Eat You Alive" is just a banger of a song. It's basically a rock song done with electronic production, which I was so excited about. And lyrically, it's a bolder way of saying, "Hey, I have a lot of love to give." And then they said some people might say lust with all the hunger imagery, but I'm sure you can get a little lustful with it too. And then they said in the announcement, you mentioned a specific period, 90s, early 2000s, which I feel like a lot of people are jumping into the whole 90s, 2000 era when it comes to music. That seems to be the litmus test blueprint. It seems like that's the sweet spot, I guess is the word I want to use, where it comes to the type of genre of music where we had a lot of good music coming out in those times. The 90s was a great time to be alive when it came to the type of music and experimentation, all the different landscapes that we was having with that. So he said, I think in the 90s, there were so many songs and bands and artists that found the sweet spot. Funny enough, he said that. I said that. In the intersection of electronic and alternative rock music. It was such a great blend. Now, looking back to the late 90s, that's when I was a teenager and music was making its first bit. Damn, I think Adam and I are probably around the same age. Because he said late 90s. I was like, yeah, I was a teenager at that time. Now, before I started the writing process, I was going back and kept listening to old playlists and bands and acts that inspired me then. And I just had this aching nostalgia for it all. So I definitely pulled that in as major references for this project. It was a good era for music. Now, they said bringing in Peter Nappy as your executive producer, was there a reason you were pulled to work with him? They said many years ago, I did a writing session with him. And at the time, I was working on my album Velvet. The whole collection of music at that point was just kind of 70s lo-fi kind of space. The song that I did with Peter was not something that would fit into that, but loved it so much that we put it on the shelf. I listened to it again before I started the process. It was like, you know what? I think this is the direction. We had already kind of embarked on this sort of industrial alternative kind of sound. He ended up working on a song with me that I put out 2 years ago on my EP after. It's called Oh, so I was right. It was Faith. Um, and I really love that. I really love. I put it at the very end of the EP because I knew I wanted to do more with Pete. So it was like, this is what's coming next. Now, of course, he says that. Now I'm sure everybody out here is wondering, will there be a tour? And of course, he was like, I mean, you would think that, yeah, with this type of record and what we're getting so far with the first single, that uh, it would make sense to want to tour behind this record because I definitely would want to hear these songs live. And I just heard that Robert sent me something where I think at Brooklyn Paramount, he's actually doing an album release party. I'm gonna try to see if I can go to that. But he also said that yeah, hopefully. I mean, I want to see how people like it first. That's important. Let's see if everyone's into it as much as I am. I would love to do some shows. I can't wait to sing some of these songs live. The whole album is going to be so much fun. I feel like the exciting thing about the album is that it's a world sonically around it. Eh, but there's a couple of different acts to it, the kind of a two-act space. And the other cool thing, I don't know how conscious we were of doing it, but what I realized once the album was finished is that there are almost cousins of the different tracks in other parts of my catalog. Once I put together a live show, it will be exciting to pair certain songs up in a set list. Because yeah, like from your entertainment, so many other records, you can take a lot of songs from those eras, and if you want to make it kind of fit into the mold of the industrial rock dance, whatever the case is, you can rework a lot of those songs for the stage. So I definitely feel like it would work for that. And it'll be interesting to see how he puts all this together when they put together the set list. So, and the one thing about Adam is that he sings down. So um I'm actually looking forward to this album. I know, like, if y'all go over to his Instagram, he did post it up there, and a lot of people was in the comments living. Like, let me see who commented. I'm pulling up on my Instagram. Oh, Kevin Avianza official said Adam Wow. Frankie Grande said Major. Manila Luzon put out some hand emojis. Sultan Raja basically put out some heart emojis. Michelle Vasage was like, yes. Cynthia Lee Fontaine. It's like all the drag race people up in here. Fire emojis. Fine ass Tom. Remember Thomas Decker? Where the hell he been? I heard he got an OF. Um, Thomas Decker said immaculate. Reno Gold, not Reno Gold, child, says sickening. Frank Noche said, love. Um, I even posted a comment. I said, two of the gayest albums will be released in July. Madonna Adam, My Body is Ready. So yeah, it seemed like a lot of the people are pretty much excited over this new era. And so I definitely want to hear from you all. What do you guys think of this story? Are you excited for some new Adam Lambert? And I'm like, finally, he's doing the music that I've been saying that he should have been out here doing for eons. But it looked like sometimes it takes that an artist has to take the wheel of their own career, like Jesus said, take the wheel to carry Underwood. So that's where she could write that or sing that song. I don't know if she wrote it, but it's like, yeah, take the wheel. You got to take the reins, and you got to be able to take your career in your own hands. And the thing is, Adam has such a great fan base with Queen and everything else that he doesn't need the backing of a label. You just need a distribution deal. You could do like these little small venues where you have your dancers, your band, and your powerful ass voice, and you'll be successful. And plus, the international girls love him too. So Adam is definitely doesn't need the backing of a major label because the major labels don't be out here seeing it for the homosexuals. But sometimes we got to do our own thing for them to see it for us. But even if they do to see it for y'all, you don't need them people. Do you? Do you, boo? So yeah, let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.